In the cold depths of space, where empires rise and fall like cosmic storms, there existed a universal truth that every species knew by heart. Humans were extinct. The Zephyrian Empire had made sure of that 300 years ago when they glassed Earth and scattered its children to the winds. What remained were scattered refugees, broken spirits clinging to dead rocks in forgotten systems, telling stories of a blue world that once was. But the galaxy had forgotten something crucial about humanity. They were never good at staying dead. When Captain Elena Vasquez received a transmission that shouldn't exist, from a place that couldn't be real, speaking words that had been silenced for 3 centuries, she realized the greatest lie ever told wasn't about human extinction. It was about human forgiveness. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled unchallenged for millennia, their crystalline ships cutting through space like divine judgment, their energy weapons capable of cracking planets like eggs. They had conquered 1,000 worlds, enslaved 100 species, and built their throne on the bones of civilizations. They believed themselves untouchable, inevitable, eternal. They had never met Elena Vasquez. Armed with nothing but a retrofitted mining ship, a crew of misfits, and a secret that could shatter empires, Elena was about to teach the galaxy's most feared conquerors a lesson that would echo through eternity. Humanity doesn't just strike back. They strike first, they strike last, and they never, ever forgive. The mining station Perdition hung in the void like a metal tumor, its hull scarred by decades of asteroid impacts and makeshift repairs. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the Zephyrian patrol cruiser glide past with the arrogant grace of a predator that had never known fear. The ship's crystalline hull caught starlight and bent it into rainbow patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't painted in the blood of extinct civilizations. Third patrol this week. Marcus Chun muttered from behind her, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the distant vessel. The former Earth Defense Force lieutenant had lost more than his eye when the Zephyrians glassed their homeworld. He'd lost his faith in justice, his belief in mercy, and, most importantly, his patience. Elena didn't turn around. At 35, she carried herself with the quiet intensity of someone who had learned to survive by being underestimated. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her coveralls bore the stains of honest work. To anyone watching, she was just another refugee scratching out a living in the galaxy's forgotten corners. They had no idea they were looking at humanity's last hope. "They're getting bolder," Elena said, her breath fogging the glass. "Or more paranoid." "Same thing with the Zephs," Marcus replied. "Paranoia is their religion, conquest their prayer." The mining station housed nearly 300 souls, humans mostly, but also a handful of other species that had fallen out of favor with the Zephyrian Empire. Ketheri merchants whose trade routes had been deemed inefficient, Vorthan engineers whose innovations had been stolen, and their creators discarded, even a few Zephyrian deserters who had grown sick of their empire's endless hunger. Elena turned away from the window as the patrol ship disappeared behind an asteroid. The observation deck was small and cramped like everything else on Perdition. The station had originally been a corporate mining platform before the war, designed to strip asteroids of precious metals. Now it served as a refuge for the galaxy's unwanted. She made her way through the narrow corridors, acknowledging the nods and greetings of the station's inhabitants. They respected her, trusted her even, but they didn't know the truth. They thought Elena Vasquez was just another survivor who had clawed her way to a position of informal leadership through competence and determination. They had no idea she was Elena Vasquez, former admiral of the Earth Defense Force's Special Operations Division, the woman who had held the line at Tau Ceti while the evacuation fleets escaped Earth's destruction. Officially, Admiral Vasquez had died with her ship when she rammed it into a Zephyrian dreadnought. Unofficially, she had ejected at the last second and spent 3 decades building a new identity, waiting for the right moment. That moment had arrived 12 hours ago in the form of an encrypted transmission. Elena's quarters were barely larger than a closet, but they were private. She sealed the door and activated the signal dampener she'd built into the walls years ago. From beneath her narrow bunk, she retrieved a device that shouldn't exist, a quantum communicator synchronized to frequencies that had been dark since Earth's fall. The message had been brief, encoded in a cipher that only a handful of people had ever known. Most of those people were dead. All of them except one. Prometheus Station operational. The seeds have grown. Time for harvest. Phoenix. Elena stared at the message for the 100th time, her hands trembling slightly. Phoenix. She hadn't heard that code name in 30 years, hadn't dared hope that the Prometheus project had survived the war. But if the message was real, if Phoenix was still alive, then everything changed. The Prometheus project had been humanity's most closely guarded secret during the war, a classified operation that even she had only partially understood. What she did know was that it involved volunteers, genetic modification, and a level of technological advancement that bordered on the impossible. The project had been designed as humanity's ultimate failsafe, a weapon that could only be deployed if extinction became inevitable. Earth's destruction had certainly qualified. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to her quarters. Elena quickly stowed the communicator and checked the security feed. Marcus stood in the corridor, his expression serious. "Come in," she said, deactivating the locks. Marcus entered and immediately activated his own signal jammer, a device that looked like a simple tool, but contained enough sophisticated electronics to shield their conversation from any surveillance. Old habits died hard for former military personnel. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications, and there's increased chatter about something called anomalous readings in the outer systems. They're mobilizing response fleets." Elena kept her expression neutral, but her mind raced. If the Zephyrians were detecting unusual activity, it might be related to Prometheus Station. The timing was too convenient to be coincidental. "Any specifics?" she asked. "Nothing concrete, but the deployment patterns suggest they're looking for something specific. Multiple search grids, deep space reconnaissance platforms, even some of their heavy cruisers are being pulled from patrol duty." Marcus paused, studying her face. "Elena, there's something else. The communication signatures match pre-war Earth defense patterns." The statement hung in the air between them like a loaded weapon. Marcus had always been too smart for his own good, too observant to miss the subtle signs that Elena worked so hard to conceal. His cybernetic eye could analyze everything from micro-expressions to heartbeat variations, making him nearly impossible to lie to. "That's impossible," Elena said carefully. "Earth's communication networks were destroyed decades ago." "That's what I thought too," Marcus replied. "But the encryption algorithms, the frequency modulations, even the signal timing, it's all Earth defense standard. Someone out there is using our protocols, Elena. Someone who shouldn't exist." Elena made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. She had spent 30 years hiding, planning, preparing for a moment that might never come. But if Phoenix was alive, if Prometheus Station was operational, then the time for hiding was over. "Marcus," she said quietly, "how badly do you want to hurt the Zephyrians?" His cybernetic eye stopped whirring, fixing her with an unblinking stare. "More than anything in this galaxy." "Why?" Elena moved to a hidden panel in her wall and input a complex code. The panel slid aside, revealing a storage compartment that contained items she hadn't touched in 3 decades. Her old Earth defense uniform, now faded and worn. A collection of medals that meant nothing to anyone alive except her. And, most importantly, a data core containing the complete operational history of Admiral Elena Vasquez. Marcus stepped backward, his face pale with shock and recognition. "My God, you're her. You're the angel of Tau Ceti." "I was," Elena said, pulling on the uniform jacket. It still fit, though it carried the weight of 3 decades of guilt and rage. "Now I'm something else." She activated the quantum communicator and, began composing a response to Phoenix's message. As her fingers moved across the input device, she explained the situation to Marcus, watching his expression shift from disbelief to understanding to something approaching religious fervor. The Prometheus project was designed to create the perfect weapon against the Zephyrian Empire, she said. Not ships or bombs or energy weapons, but people. Enhanced humans with capabilities that would make them essentially unstoppable. The project required volunteers to undergo genetic modifications that would fundamentally alter their physiology and psychology. Most of the volunteers were expected to die during the process. But some survived, Marcus whispered. Apparently so. And if Phoenix is telling the truth, they've been growing stronger for 30 years. Elena finished her message and transmitted it into the void, knowing that it would take hours to reach its destination even at quantum speeds. The response was simple: coming home. Prepare for war. The next several hours passed in a blur of careful preparation. Elena and Marcus moved through the station, quietly identifying individuals they could trust with the truth. The selection criteria were simple. They had to have lost everything to the Zephyrian Empire, they had to possess useful skills, and they had to be willing to die for the chance at revenge. By the time the response came from Prometheus Station, they had assembled a core group of 20 individuals. Former military personnel, skilled engineers, weapon specialists, and one Vorthan computer expert who possessed an almost supernatural ability to hack Zephyrian systems. The response from Phoenix was longer than the first message, containing detailed coordinates and a shocking revelation. Prometheus Station wasn't located in some remote system beyond the galaxy's edge. It was hidden in plain sight, camouflaged within the asteroid field that surrounded Perdition itself. They've been watching us, Marcus said, his cybernetic eye scanning the coordinates in disbelief. For how long? Long enough to know we could be trusted, Elena replied. Phoenix always was the most paranoid person I ever met, but also the smartest. The team assembled in Perdition's largest cargo bay 12 hours later. Elena stood before them, wearing her Earth Defense uniform, every medal and insignia restored to its proper place. For many of them, it was the first time they had seen the colors of their extinct homeworld in decades. You all know why we're here, she began, her voice carrying across the silent bay. The Zephyrian Empire took everything from us. Our homes, our families, our future. They scattered us to the winds and left us to die forgotten in the dark corners of space. She paused, letting the words sink in. Around the bay, faces hardened with remembered pain and rekindled anger. But we didn't die. We survived. We learned. We grew stronger. And now it's time to show the galaxy what happens when you try to exterminate humanity and fail. Elena activated a holographic display that showed the coordinates Phoenix had provided. The asteroid appeared unremarkable, just another chunk of rock in a field of thousands. But, according to the data, it contained a facility that had been operating in complete secrecy for 3 decades. Tomorrow, we go home, Elena announced. Tomorrow, we meet the future of our species. And tomorrow, we begin the war that will bring the Zephyrian Empire to its knees. The cargo bay erupted in cheers, but Elena barely heard them. Her mind was already focused on the challenges ahead. The Prometheus project had been humanity's greatest gamble, an attempt to create enhanced humans who could match the Zephyrians' technological advantages through sheer biological superiority. If the project had succeeded, if the volunteers had survived their transformations, then the galaxy was about to witness something unprecedented. But if Phoenix was wrong, if the project had failed or been compromised, then Elena was leading her people into a trap that would result in their complete annihilation. As the crowd dispersed to make their final preparations, Marcus approached her with a thoughtful expression. Elena, he said quietly, what if we can't control them? These enhanced humans, I mean. What if 30 years of isolation and genetic modification has turned them into something that we can't predict or manage? Elena considered the question carefully. It was a valid concern, one that had kept her awake countless nights during the war. The Prometheus volunteers had been the best humanity had to offer: soldiers, scientists, artists, and philosophers who had volunteered to sacrifice their humanity for the chance to preserve it. But transformation of that magnitude came with risks that even the project's designers hadn't fully understood. "Then, we hope their target acquisition is better than ours," she said finally. "Because either way, the Zephyrian Empire is about to learn why humanity never stays extinct." The next morning, Elena stood in the command center of the Defiant, a retrofitted mining ship that had been converted into humanity's most advanced stealth vessel. The ship itself was unremarkable from the outside, just another civilian craft traversing the asteroid fields. But beneath its humble exterior lay sensor arrays, weapons systems, and defensive capabilities that would have impressed even Earth defense engineers. As they approached the coordinates Phoenix had provided, Elena felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. 30 years ago, she had said goodbye to colleagues and friends who had volunteered for the Prometheus project. She had never expected to see any of them again. The asteroid looked exactly like every other chunk of rock in the field, but as they drew closer, the Defiant's advanced sensors began to detect subtle anomalies. Power signatures buried deep within the asteroid's core. Magnetic field fluctuations that suggested massive internal structures. And, most remarkably, life signs that registered as human, but displayed biological readings that pushed the very limits of what the sensors considered possible. "My God," Marcus whispered from the sensor station. "Elena, you need to see this." On the main display, a detailed scan of the asteroid revealed the truth. The entire interior had been hollowed out and converted into a massive facility. Multi-level habitation areas, manufacturing centers, research laboratories, and training facilities that boggled the mind. But most impressive of all was the population count. Over 10,000 enhanced humans living and working in complete secrecy. As Elena stared at the readouts, a communication channel opened with a familiar voice that sent chills down her spine. "Welcome home, Admiral," Phoenix said, and Elena could hear the smile in her old friend's voice. "Permission to come aboard?" The docking bay inside Prometheus Station defied every expectation Elena had formed during their approach. What should have been a cramped, utilitarian space carved from asteroid rock was instead a vast chamber with walls that seemed to pulse with bioluminescent patterns. The ceiling stretched far above their heads, supported by architectural elements that looked grown rather than built. And everywhere, enhanced humans moved with a fluid grace that spoke of capabilities far beyond baseline human norms. Elena stepped off the Defiant's boarding ramp and immediately felt the difference in gravity. It was Earth standard, precisely calibrated to match the homeworld that had been lost decades ago. The air carried scents of growing things, earth and leaves and flowers that shouldn't exist in the vacuum of space, but somehow thrived here in this impossible sanctuary. "Adrian," she whispered, recognizing the figure approaching them despite 3 decades of separation and transformation. Dr. Adrian Phoenix had been the Prometheus Project's chief architect, a brilliant geneticist and bioengineer who had volunteered to be the first test subject for his own revolutionary process. The man who approached Elena now bore only a passing resemblance to her old friend. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his frame athletic but not bulky, moving with a predatory efficiency that set off every combat instinct she possessed. His eyes had retained their distinctive green color, but they now held a depth of intelligence and calculation that seemed almost alien. "Elena," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that resonated in her bones. "You look exactly as I remembered." "You don't," she replied honestly, studying the subtle changes in his features. His bone structure had been refined, strengthened, optimized for purposes she could only guess at. The process worked. "Better than we dared hope," Adrian confirmed. "Come, there are things you need to see, people you need to meet, and plans that require your expertise." As they walked through corridors that seemed to breathe with life, Elena's team spread out behind her, their expressions ranging from wonder to barely concealed fear. Marcus kept his cybernetic eye focused on their surroundings, recording everything for later analysis. The Vorthan computer expert, Zix, muttered prayers in his native language while running portable scanners that registered energy signatures unlike anything in his considerable experience. "How many?" Elena asked as they passed through what appeared to be a residential district. Enhanced humans moved about their daily business with casual efficiency, many acknowledging Adrian with respectful nods. Children, obviously enhanced from birth, played games that involved impossible feats of agility and coordination. 10,732 as of this morning, Adrian replied. The original volunteers numbered just over 300. The rest are their descendants, born enhanced, raised to understand their purpose. Which is... Adrian stopped walking and turned to face her, his green eyes holding depths of determination that made Elena's breath catch. To ensure that what happened to Earth never happens again. To anyone. They resumed walking, entering a lift that carried them deeper into the station's core. As they descended, Adrian explained the developments of the past 30 years. The Prometheus volunteers had not merely survived their transformations. They had thrived beyond all projections. Enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes were just the beginning. Their cognitive capabilities had been dramatically improved, allowing for processing speeds and pattern recognition that bordered on precognitive. Their lifespans had been extended to centuries rather than decades. Most remarkably, they had developed what Adrian described as quantum intuition, an ability to perceive probability streams and make tactical decisions with near-perfect accuracy. But the most important enhancement, Adrian continued as the lift stopped at their destination, was psychological. We eliminated the capacity for surrender. Enhanced humans, quite literally, cannot accept defeat as a permanent condition. We will adapt, evolve, and overcome any obstacle placed before us. The lift doors opened onto a command center that took Elena's breath away. The chamber was vast, its walls lined with displays showing tactical information from across the galaxy. Holographic star charts rotated in the center of the room, marking Zephyrian fleet positions, resource concentrations, and what appeared to be strategic vulnerabilities that Elena had never considered. But it was the people manning the various stations that truly impressed her. Enhanced humans worked with machine-like efficiency, their hands moving across control interfaces faster than baseline human reflexes should allow. Data flowed through the command center at rates that would have overwhelmed any conventional facility, but here was processed and analyzed in real time by minds that had been designed for exactly this purpose. "Welcome to Ragnarok Division," Adrian said with obvious pride. "Our strategic planning center and the nerve center of humanity's return to galactic prominence." Elena approached the central display, studying the tactical readouts with growing amazement. The enhanced humans had been monitoring Zephyrian activities across thousands of star systems, mapping their patrol routes, analyzing their supply chains, and identifying weaknesses in their seemingly impregnable empire. The scope of the intelligence operation was staggering. "You've been preparing for this for 30 years, she said, understanding beginning to dawn. "Every single day," confirmed a new voice from across the chamber. Elena turned to see another enhanced human approaching, a woman whose transformation was even more dramatic than Adrian's. She stood nearly as tall as he did, but her frame suggested speed and lethality rather than raw strength. Her silver hair was cropped short, and her eyes held the kind of cold intelligence that Elena associated with apex predators. "Admiral Vasquez," the woman said, extending a hand that Elena noticed possessed an extra joint in each finger. "I'm Colonel Sarah Chun, Marcus's sister." Elena glanced at Marcus, who was staring at his transformed sister with an expression of shock and joy. The family resemblance was still there, but Sarah Chun had become something magnificent and terrifying. "Sarah volunteered for the second wave of enhancements," Adrian explained. She now commands our Special Operations Forces. How many waves were there? Elena asked. 7, Sarah replied. Each generation building on the successes and failures of those who came before. The current generation of enhanced humans represents the pinnacle of human potential. As if summoned by her words, a group of young, enhanced humans entered the command center. They moved with such perfect coordination that Elena initially thought they were performing some kind of choreographed routine. Then she realized they were simply walking, their enhanced reflexes and spatial awareness allowing them to navigate the crowded space without ever coming into contact with each other or the various equipment. The youngest couldn't have been more than 20, but her eyes held an ancient intelligence that sent chills down Elena's spine. When she spoke, her voice carried the same harmonic qualities as Adrian's, but amplified to an almost hypnotic degree. "Admiral," she said, her tone respectful but confident. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Jessica Morrison, 7th Generation Enhancement. I'll be serving as your tactical liaison during the operation." "What operation?" Elena asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Adrian activated the central display, which shifted to show a detailed schematic of something that made Elena's heart race with recognition and terror. It was a Zephyrian Imperial Dreadnought, the same class of ship that had been used to destroy Earth. But this schematic showed every internal system, every structural weakness, every blind spot in its defenses. "Operation Prometheus," Adrian announced to the assembled command staff. "Phase 1 of humanity's return to galactic dominance begins in 72 hours. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Elena studied the tactical display, her military instincts analyzing the proposed assault plan. It was audacious to the point of insanity. A direct attack on one of the Zephyrian Empire's most heavily defended installations using resources that seemed pathetically inadequate for the task. "You're planning to attack Zephyr Prime," she said, recognizing the star system displayed on the tactical overlay. "We're planning to capture it," Sarah corrected. "The Zephyrian homeworld has been the center of their empire for over 2 millennia. Its fall will send shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy." Elena stared at the display, her mind racing through the countless ways such an operation could fail catastrophically. Zephyr Prime was protected by defensive installations that could vaporize entire fleets, surrounded by patrol squadrons that numbered in the thousands, and garrisoned by the Empire's most elite forces. The idea of capturing it with any force smaller than a massive allied armada was beyond optimistic. It was suicidal. "With what ships?" she asked. "What army?" "The enhanced humans may be impressive, but there are only 10,000 of you against an empire that spans half the galaxy." "You're thinking like a baseline human," Jessica said with a smile that was both beautiful and predatory. "Watch." She moved to a control station and input a series of commands that caused the chamber's lights to dim. The central display expanded to fill their entire field of vision, creating a 3-dimensional battlefield simulation that placed them at the heart of the Zephyr Prime system. What Elena saw next redefined her understanding of what was possible. The simulation showed enhanced humans infiltrating Zephyrian installations not through stealth or deception, but by simply moving faster than their enemies could react. They passed through defensive screens that should have been impenetrable, disabled weapons systems that should have been untouchable, and eliminated opposition forces with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. "Enhanced humans don't fight battles," Adrian explained as the simulation continued. "We solve tactical problems. The Zephyrian Empire represents a particularly complex problem that has required 30 years of preparation to solve properly." The simulation shifted to show the capture of key installations throughout the Zephyr Prime system. Enhanced humans secured orbital platforms, disabled communication networks, and neutralized command structures with surgical precision. But it was the assault on the planetary surface that truly demonstrated their capabilities. Enhanced humans fell from orbit without ships or protective suits, their modified physiology allowing them to survive atmospheric entry through sheer biological resilience. They moved across the surface of Zephyr Prime like living weapons, adapting to any opposition they encountered and overcoming obstacles that should have stopped any conventional force. The psychological impact will be even more devastating than the tactical victory, Sarah added as the simulation concluded. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled through fear for millennia. When their most secure stronghold falls to a force they didn't even know existed, that fear will turn inward. They'll begin questioning everything they believed about their own superiority. Elena found herself torn between admiration and horror. What she had witnessed was undoubtedly the future of warfare, a level of capability that would revolutionize military doctrine across the galaxy. But the enhanced humans had become something so far beyond baseline humanity that she wondered if they could still be called human at all. What happens after Zephyr Prime? She asked. Do you stop there, or does this become a war of extermination? That depends, Adrian replied, on how quickly the Empire surrenders. And if they don't, then we continue until they do, Jessica said with the same casual tone she might use to discuss the weather. Enhanced humans don't have the luxury of accepting partial victories. Either our species survives and thrives, or our enemies don't. Elena spent the next several hours touring Prometheus Station, seeing firsthand the technological and biological marvels that 30 years of isolation had produced. The enhanced humans had developed manufacturing capabilities that allowed them to create equipment superior to anything in the Zephyrian Empire's arsenal. Their weapons were more efficient, their armor more protective, their ships faster and more maneuverable. But it was their training facilities that truly impressed her. Enhanced humans practiced combat scenarios that would have been lethal to baseline humans, pushing their abilities to limits that redefined what Elena considered possible. She watched children barely into their teens perform feats that would have challenged Earth's most elite special forces operators. We've been breeding for war, Adrian explained as they observed a group of enhanced adolescents disassembling and rebuilding weapons while blindfolded. Every generation has been optimized for specific tactical requirements. The children you're watching now will be the ones who establish humanity's new colonies and territories we liberate from the Empire. As the tour concluded, Elena found herself standing once again in the command center, staring at the tactical displays that showed the scope of the coming operation. Her mind was still struggling to accept what she had witnessed, but her military instincts recognized the brilliance of the planning involved. You want me to coordinate with the refugee populations, she said, finally, understanding her role in the operation. More than that, Adrian replied. We want you to lead them. When Zephyr Prime falls, every human in the galaxy will need to know that their survival is no longer in question. They'll need a symbol, a leader who represents both their past and their future. And if I refuse, then you refuse, Sarah said simply. Enhanced humans don't coerce cooperation. We simply solve problems with the resources available to us. Elena looked around the command center, studying the faces of the enhanced humans who had dedicated their lives to humanity's survival. They had sacrificed their humanity to preserve it, transformed themselves into something magnificent and terrible for the sake of their species' future. The least she could do was help them complete their mission. When do we begin? She asked. Jessica smiled, her enhanced features beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. We already have. On the main display, new tactical readouts appeared showing Zephyrian fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Unknown to their enemies, enhanced human infiltrators have been seeding their installations for weeks, gathering intelligence, and preparing for coordinated strikes that would cripple the Empire's ability to respond to the assault on their homeworld. In 68 hours, Adrian announced, the Zephyrian Empire will learn what it means to face an enemy that cannot be intimidated, cannot be negotiated with, and will never, ever stop fighting. Elena Vasquez, Admiral of the Earth Defense Force and symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit, stood among the enhanced humans and felt something she hadn't experienced since Earth's fall: hope for the future. The War Council convened in a chamber deep within Prometheus Station that Elena hadn't seen, during her initial tour. The room itself seemed alive, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that responded to the emotional states of the enhanced humans present. As the strategic discussion intensified, the patterns shifted from cool blues to aggressive reds, creating an environment that felt more like being inside a living organism than a military facility. Elena sat at a curved table that accommodated 30 enhanced humans, each representing a different aspect of the coming operation. To her left, Marcus reviewed intelligence reports on his tablet, his cybernetic eye-processing data streams that would have overwhelmed baseline human cognition. To her right, Adrian Phoenix manipulated holographic displays that showed real-time positioning of Zephyrian fleets across 17 star systems. The preliminary infiltration is complete, reported Colonel Sarah Chun, her silver hair catching the chamber's shifting lights. Our advanced teams have compromised 47% of the Zephyr Prime system's defensive installations. When the assault begins, those installations will turn their weapons on their own ships. Lieutenant Commander Jessica Morrison, representing the 7th-generation enhanced humans, stood before a tactical display that showed the Zephyrian homeworld in remarkable detail. Elena could see individual buildings in the planet's major cities, defense platforms orbiting at specific altitudes, even the patrol patterns of security forces on the surface. Surface infiltration has proceeded ahead of schedule, Jessica reported, her voice carrying those distinctive harmonics that made Elena's skin tingle. We have operatives in position at every major command center, including the Imperial Palace itself. Emperor Zythak doesn't know it yet, but he's been under observation for the past 18 days. The revelation sent a chill through Elena's spine. The Zephyrian Emperor was considered untouchable, surrounded by layers of security that had protected the Imperial bloodline for over 2 millennia. The fact that enhanced humans had penetrated even those defenses demonstrated capabilities that bordered on the impossible. What about their fleet response capabilities? Elena asked, studying the tactical readouts with growing concern. Even with your infiltrators, they still have over 3,000 ships in the home system alone. Which brings us to the second phase of the operation, Adrian said, activating a new display that showed something Elena recognized with shock and dismay. It was a Zephyrian Imperial dreadnought, but one that had been extensively modified with technology she didn't recognize. You captured one of their ships, she whispered. We captured 7 of them over the past decade, Sarah corrected. This particular vessel, the Eternal Dominion, was taken during a patrol operation in the Kepler Expanse. Its crew of 4,000 was repurposed. Elena felt her blood run cold. Repurposed how? Enhanced, Jessica said simply. Not to the same degree as true enhanced humans, but sufficiently to serve our purposes. The Zephyrian physiology responds quite well to biological modification. Actually, they maintain their original personalities and memories, but their loyalty has been adjusted. The implications were staggering. Elena stared at the tactical display, realizing that the enhanced humans weren't just planning to defeat the Zephyrian Empire. They were planning to convert it. The captured crews would appear completely normal to their own forces while serving enhanced human interests. How many? She asked, though part of her dreaded the answer. Approximately 200,000 Zephyrians have been enhanced over the past 15 years, Adrian reported matter-of-factly. They occupy key positions throughout the Empire's military and governmental hierarchy. When Operation Prometheus begins, they'll ensure that resistance is minimal. Elena stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the chamber's living floor. The ethical implications of what she was hearing challenged everything she had believed about the enhanced human's mission. You're talking about mind control on a massive scale. We're talking about survival, Sarah replied, her enhanced features showing no trace of remorse. The Zephyrian Empire has proven that it cannot coexist peacefully with other species. Our choice was to allow them to continue their genocidal expansion or to modify their behavior patterns to make coexistence possible. By removing their free will, by removing their capacity for unprovoked aggression, Jessica corrected. Enhanced Zephyrians retain their personalities, their relationships, their cultural identity. They simply can't harm innocent beings anymore. Most of them consider it an improvement to their psychological state. Elena walked to the chamber's viewing wall, which showed the vast interior of Prometheus Station stretching away in all directions. Enhanced humans moved through the corridors below with their characteristic fluid grace, some accompanied by beings she now realized must be converted Zephyrians. The alien beings moved with the same effortless coordination, their crystal-like features unmarked by any sign of distress or confusion. "This isn't war," she said quietly. "This is assimilation. This is evolution," Adrian replied, joining her at the viewing wall. The galaxy has tried conventional warfare for millennia, and the result has been endless cycles of conquest, genocide, and revenge. Enhanced humans represent something new, a species that can break those cycles by removing the psychological foundations that make them possible. Elena turned to face the assembled enhanced humans, studying their expressions for any sign of doubt or uncertainty. What she saw instead was absolute confidence, the kind of certainty that came from minds that had been optimized for strategic thinking and problem-solving. "And what happens to species that can't be enhanced?" she asked. "What happens to humans who choose to remain baseline?" "They're free to make that choice," Sarah answered. "Enhanced humans don't force evolution on others. We simply ensure that aggressive species can't threaten peaceful ones, by converting them whether they consent or not. By neutralizing threats to galactic stability," Jessica said, her tone carrying a hint of impatience. "Admiral, you're applying baseline human ethical frameworks to situations that baseline humans are fundamentally incapable of understanding. Enhanced humans can perceive probability streams that extend centuries into the future. We can see the long-term consequences of every action, every decision, every policy choice. What appears to be coercion from your perspective is actually prevention of genocide from ours." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. The enhanced humans spoke with the kind of absolute moral certainty that historically preceded the worst atrocities in galactic history. But they also possessed capabilities that made their predictions unerringly accurate. "Show me," she said finally. Adrian moved to the central tactical display and input a series of commands. The holographic projection shifted to show a complex probability matrix that hurt Elena's eyes to look at directly. The display showed branching timelines extending thousands of years into the future, with probability percentages attached to each potential outcome. "Baseline scenario," Adrian explained, highlighting one branch of the matrix. "The Zephyrian Empire continues its current expansion pattern. Within 2 centuries, they will have conquered or destroyed 73% of all intelligent species in the galaxy. Within 5 centuries, they will have achieved total galactic domination through genocide." The highlighted timeline showed the systematic elimination of species after species, worlds burned to ash, entire star systems stripped of life. Elena watched civilizations fall in the projection and felt sick to her stomach. "Enhanced intervention scenario," Adrian continued, highlighting a different branch. "Zephyrian leadership is converted, their aggressive tendencies are modified, and their empire is transformed into a peaceful confederation. Galactic civilization enters a period of unprecedented prosperity and technological advancement." This timeline showed something entirely different. Worlds thriving, species cooperating, technology advancing at rates that seemed almost magical. It was a future of peace and progress that would have seemed like paradise to the war-torn galaxy Elena knew. "But there's a third option," Jessica said, activating another branch of the probability matrix. "Complete Zephyrian elimination. Enhanced humans systematically hunt down and destroy every member of their species, ensuring that their aggressive tendencies can never threaten anyone again." This timeline was stark in its simplicity. The Zephyrian Empire simply ceased to exist, replaced by enhanced human colonies that spread across their former territories. It was efficient, permanent, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. "Those are our three options," Adrian said, deactivating the display. "Conversion, elimination, or allowing genocide to continue." Enhanced humans have chosen conversion because it preserves the greatest number of lives while ensuring long-term galactic stability. Elena stared at the now empty display space, her mind struggling to process the implications of what she had witnessed. The enhanced humans weren't just planning to defeat their enemies. They were planning to fundamentally reshape the nature of galactic civilization itself. "What about choice?" she asked quietly. "What about the right of species to make their own mistakes, to learn from their failures, to grow and change naturally?" "Growth and change require survival," Sarah replied. "Dead species don't learn from their mistakes. Enhanced humans are ensuring that evolution continues rather than ending in extinction." The debate was interrupted by an alert signal that filled the chamber with harmonic tones. Enhanced humans throughout the room immediately shifted their attention to their workstations, processing incoming data with machine-like efficiency. "Admiral," Jessica announced, her expression shifting to one of focused intensity. "We have a development that requires your immediate attention." The central display activated, showing a real-time tactical situation that made Elena's blood run cold. A massive Zephyrian fleet had appeared at the edge of the perdition system, their crystalline ships arranged in attack formation. The display showed over 200 vessels, including several of the massive dreadnoughts that had destroyed Earth decades earlier. "They found us," Marcus said, his cybernetic eye processing the fleet composition with rapid precision. "How is that possible?" "It's not possible," Adrian replied, studying the tactical readouts with growing confusion. "Our stealth technology is absolute. There's no way they could have detected Prometheus Station or traced our communications." Sarah was already moving toward the chamber's exit, her enhanced reflexes carrying her with inhuman speed. "Unless someone told them where to look," she said grimly. Elena felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in her mind. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for millennia, not just through superior technology, but through intelligence networks that spanned every inhabited system. If they had discovered the existence of enhanced humans, they would have devoted enormous resources to locating and eliminating the threat. "They know about the Prometheus project," she realized. "They've known about it for years, maybe decades. They've been waiting for us to reveal ourselves." The chamber's alert signals intensified as more tactical data flowed through the command network. The Zephyrian fleet wasn't just conducting a reconnaissance mission. They were preparing for immediate assault. Energy signatures indicated that their weapons were charged and ready, their defensive screens were at maximum power, and their fighter squadrons were deploying for attack runs. "How long until they reach effective weapons range?" Elena asked. 18 minutes. Jessica reported, her enhanced cognition processing the tactical mathematics within human speed. "But that's not our immediate problem." A new set of readouts appeared on the display, showing energy signatures from deep within the asteroid field around perdition. Elena recognized the patterns with growing horror. They were the distinctive signatures of Zephyrian stealth ships, vessels that had been hiding in the asteroid field for an unknown period. "They've been watching us," Marcus said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. "The whole time we've been planning this operation, they've been gathering intelligence on our capabilities." "Which means they know about our infiltrators," Adrian realized, his enhanced features showing the first signs of concern Elena had seen from him. "They know about our converted operatives throughout their empire." The implications were devastating. If the Zephyrians had been monitoring enhanced human activities, they would have identified and eliminated the infiltrators who were essential to Operation Prometheus. Without those assets in place, the assault on Zephyr Prime would fail catastrophically. "We need to evacuate immediately," Elena said, her military instincts taking over. "How many ships do we have available for emergency evacuation?" "We're not evacuating," Sarah announced as she returned to the chamber, her expression carrying a predatory intensity that made Elena's skin crawl. "We're accelerating the timeline." What timeline? Elena demanded. Operation Prometheus was always designed with multiple contingencies, Adrian explained, his enhanced cognition already processing the new tactical situation. If our infiltration was compromised, we would move to direct assault protocols. The enhanced humans aboard Prometheus Station are more than capable of handling a few hundred Zephyrian ships. Elena stared at him in disbelief. There are 10,000 of you against 200 warships. The mathematics are impossible. The mathematics are irrelevant, Jessica said with absolute confidence. Enhanced humans don't lose battles, Admiral. We solve tactical problems. The Zephyrian fleet represents a tactical problem that we've been preparing to solve for 30 years. As if summoned by her words, enhanced humans throughout the chamber began moving with synchronized precision. They accessed workstations, activated weapons systems, and coordinated responses with an efficiency that seemed choreographed. Elena realized she was witnessing something unprecedented, an entire military operation conducted by beings whose cognitive capabilities allowed them to function as a single, unified intelligence. All enhanced human assets are moving to combat status, Sarah reported, her silver hair reflecting the chamber's increasingly aggressive light patterns. Prometheus Station's defensive systems are online. Our converted operatives throughout the galaxy are receiving activation codes, and our assault teams are preparing for immediate deployment. Against the entire Zephyrian Empire? Elena asked. Against anyone who threatens humanity's survival, Adrian replied, his green eyes holding depths of determination that Elena found both inspiring and terrifying. The chamber's displays shifted to show tactical readouts from across the galaxy as enhanced human operatives revealed themselves and began coordinated strikes against Zephyrian installations. Elena watched in amazement as the Empire's communication networks went dark, their supply depots exploded, and their fleet bases descended into chaos. But it was the assault on Zephyr Prime itself that truly demonstrated the enhanced humans' capabilities. Despite the compromised infiltration, the attack proceeded exactly as planned. Enhanced humans fell from orbit without ships or protective gear, their modified physiology allowing them to survive atmospheric entry through sheer biological resilience. They moved across the planet's surface like living weapons, overwhelming defense forces that had never encountered opponents with their capabilities. Emperor Zythak is in custody, Jessica reported 12 minutes after the assault began. The Imperial Palace has been secured, and the planetary defense grid is under enhanced human control. Elena stared at the tactical displays, watching as the most powerful empire in galactic history crumbled in real time. The Zephyrian fleet at Perdition was receiving frantic communications from their homeworld, their formation beginning to waver as commanders tried to understand how their most secure installations could fall so quickly. "It's over," she whispered. "No," Adrian corrected, his enhanced features showing satisfaction mixed with grim determination. "Now it begins." The Zephyrian fleet at Perdition hung motionless in space, their crystalline ships reflecting the light of distant stars like frozen tears. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Prometheus Station, watching through the reinforced transparisteel as 200 of the galaxy's most feared warships waited for orders that would never come. In the past 6 hours, the enhanced humans had systematically dismantled the Zephyrian Empire's command structure, leaving their military forces leaderless and confused. Behind her, the command center buzzed with activity as enhanced humans coordinated the transition from conquest to occupation. The speed and efficiency of their operations defied every military doctrine Elena had ever studied. Where baseline humans would require months to consolidate control over a galactic empire, the enhanced humans were accomplishing it in real time. Admiral Jessica Morrison approached with her characteristic fluid grace, her 7th-generation enhancements, making her movements seem almost supernatural. "The Zephyrian Fleet Commander is requesting permission to communicate with you." Elena turned away from the window, studying Jessica's expression for any hint of deception or manipulation. What she found instead was genuine curiosity, as if the enhanced human was conducting an experiment to see how baseline humans would handle the situation. "What does he want?" Elena asked. "To surrender, presumably," Jessica replied. Though enhanced humans find Zephyrian psychology somewhat predictable after 30 years of study. Elena made her way back to the command center, where holographic displays showed the tactical situation throughout the galaxy. The scope of the enhanced humans' victory was staggering. In less than 12 hours, they had captured or neutralized every major Zephyrian installation, converted key personnel throughout the Empire's hierarchy, and established control over star systems that spanned half the galaxy. But it was the images from Zephyr Prime itself that truly demonstrated the magnitude of the transformation taking place. The planet's major cities showed no signs of destruction or chaos. Instead, enhanced humans moved through the streets alongside Zephyrian civilians who appeared calm and cooperative. The transition seemed almost peaceful, as if the Empire had simply decided to change management rather than fall to an invasion. "Open the communication channel," Elena instructed. The main display activated, showing the bridge of a Zephyrian dreadnought. The ship's commander was a typical representative of his species: tall, crystalline features that reflected light in prismatic patterns, and eyes that held the kind of ancient intelligence that came from a race that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. But those eyes now showed something Elena had never seen in a Zephyrian before: uncertainty. "I am Fleet Admiral Kythex of the Imperial Navy," the commander said, his translated voice carrying harmonics that spoke of barely controlled fear. "I request immediate audience with the commander of the human forces." Elena stepped forward, still wearing her Earth Defense uniform with its faded medals and insignia. To the Zephyrian commander, she must have seemed like a ghost from humanity's extinct past, a reminder of the species they thought they had successfully eliminated 3 decades earlier. "I am Admiral Elena Vasquez," she said simply. "What do you want?" The Zephyrian's crystalline features shifted in what Elena recognized as expressions of shock and disbelief. "Vasquez? The Angel of Tau Ceti? But you died in the final battle for Earth." "I got better," Elena replied with grim satisfaction. "Now explain why your fleet is threatening this station." Admiral Kythex was silent for several moments, his alien features cycling through expressions that suggested rapid internal debate. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of someone who was being forced to confront the collapse of everything he had believed about the universe. "Our orders were to investigate reports of human activity in this sector," he said carefully. "We were told to expect refugees, perhaps a small group of survivors attempting to establish a hidden colony. We were not prepared for this." He gestured to something off-screen, and Elena realized he was referring to the tactical displays that would be showing him the destruction of his entire empire. The Zephyrians had built their civilization on the assumption that they were the galaxy's apex species, technologically and militarily superior to any possible opposition. The existence of enhanced humans challenged that assumption at the most fundamental level. "What are your intentions regarding my fleet?" Kythex asked, his voice carrying the kind of formal dignity that Elena associated with military officers who knew they were about to die. Elena looked around the command center, studying the enhanced humans as they monitored the situation with machine-like efficiency. They showed no signs of bloodlust or revenge, no indication that they intended to massacre their defeated enemies. Instead, they seemed focused on integration, on finding ways to incorporate Zephyrian assets into their expanding sphere of influence. "That depends," Elena said finally, "on whether your people are willing to accept new management." Adrian Phoenix materialized beside her with the kind of silent movement that enhanced humans had perfected, his presence somehow making the conversation feel more significant. "Admiral Kythex," he said, his enhanced voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the Zephyrian's crystalline physiology. "Your empire has ended, but your species' future is still being determined." The alien commander's features shifted again, this time showing what Elena recognized as hope mixed with deep suspicion. What do you propose? Evolution, Adrian replied simply. Your people have spent millennia perfecting the art of conquest and domination. Enhanced humans offer you the opportunity to perfect something else, cooperation and mutual prosperity. Elena watched the exchange with growing unease. Adrian's words sounded reasonable, even benevolent, but she knew what they actually meant. The enhanced humans weren't offering the Zephyrians a choice. They were offering them a carefully designed alternative to extinction. We offer your people enhancement, Jessica added, stepping into the communication range. Biological and psychological modifications that will allow you to experience existence without the compulsive need for dominance that has driven your species for so long. You'll retain your memories, your relationships, your cultural identity. You'll simply lose the capacity for unprovoked aggression. Admiral Kythex stared at the enhanced humans with an expression that Elena couldn't quite interpret. You're offering to change what we are at the most fundamental level. We're offering to help you become what you could be, Sarachin corrected, her silver hair catching the chamber's bioluminescent lighting. Enhanced Zephyrians report significantly improved psychological well-being. They experience empathy, cooperation, and mutual support in ways that baseline Zephyrians find impossible. And if we refuse? The question hung in the air like a weapon, and Elena found herself holding her breath as she waited for the answer. This was the moment that would define the enhanced human's true nature, whether they were liberators or conquerors wearing the mask of benevolence. Then, you refuse, Adrian said with apparent sincerity. Enhanced humans don't force evolution on unwilling subjects. We simply ensure that aggressive species can't threaten peaceful ones. Elena understood the implications immediately. The enhanced humans wouldn't force the Zephyrians to accept biological modification, but they also wouldn't allow them to maintain their empire or continue their aggressive expansion. Any Zephyrians who refused enhancement would find themselves confined to a small number of designated worlds, effectively quarantined from the rest of galactic civilization. Admiral Kythex seemed to reach the same conclusion. Submission or exile, he said quietly. Survival or irrelevance, Jessica corrected. Admiral, your species has a choice to make. You can evolve alongside the rest of the galaxy, or you can preserve your current nature and accept the isolation that comes with it. But the age of Zephyrian dominance is over. The communication fell silent as the alien commander considered his options. Elena could see the internal struggle playing out across his crystalline features, the conflict between pride and practicality, between cultural identity and species survival. I will need to consult with my fleet commanders, Kythex said finally. Of course, Adrian replied. Take all the time you need. But, Admiral, I should mention that enhanced human analysis indicates a 93% probability that your superiors will order you to attack this station rather than accept any form of surrender. The prediction sent chills down Elena's spine. If it proved accurate, the enhanced humans would be forced to destroy the Zephyrian fleet in order to protect themselves. 200 warships, and their crews would die because their leadership couldn't accept the new reality. And if that happens? Kythex asked. Then we solve the tactical problem, Sarah replied with the same casual tone she might use to discuss routine maintenance. Enhanced humans don't lose battles, Admiral. We simply adapt our solutions to match the complexity of the problems we face. The communication ended, leaving the command center in relative silence. Elena stared at the displays showing the Zephyrian fleet, knowing that she was watching the final moments of one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Whether they chose evolution or extinction, the Zephyrian Empire as it had existed for millennia was ending. You really would destroy them all, she said, not making a question. If necessary, Adrian confirmed. But we hope it won't be. Enhanced Zephyrians make excellent citizens once their aggressive tendencies are modified. Their crystalline physiology actually responds quite well to biological enhancement. Elena walked back to the observation window, studying the enemy fleet that hung motionless in space. Each ship contained thousands of beings who were about to face an impossible choice: surrender their essential nature or face extinction. It was a decision that no species should have to make, but the enhanced humans had made it inevitable through the scope and precision of their victory. "What happens next?" she asked. "Next, we wait to see whether the Zephyrian fleet chooses to die gloriously or live productively," Jessica replied, joining Elena at the window. "Then, we continue the process with the remaining empires that pose threats to galactic stability." "The other empires?" 17 major civilizations have been identified as requiring intervention, Sarah explained, manipulating holographic displays that showed star maps marked with ominous red indicators. The hegemony of Krell, the corporate dominion, the theocratic states of Ashax. Each represents a different type of threat to peaceful species, and each will require customized solutions. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. The enhanced humans weren't just planning to reshape the Zephyrian Empire. They were planning to remake the entire galaxy according to their own vision of how civilization should function. "And if they all refuse?" she asked. "Then the galaxy will be ruled by species that accept enhancement voluntarily," Adrian said matter-of-factly. "Enhanced humans can be quite patient when necessary. We can wait centuries for aggressive species to either evolve or eliminate themselves through their own actions." The conversation was interrupted by alert signals that filled the command center with harmonic tones. Enhanced humans throughout the chamber immediately focused their attention on incoming data, their enhanced cognition processing information streams that would have overwhelmed baseline human minds. "The Zephyrian fleet is moving," Jessica announced, her expression shifting to one of focused concentration. "Admiral Kythex's superiors have issued new orders." Elena moved to the tactical displays, watching as the crystalline ships began changing formation. Their movements were precise and coordinated, the kind of complex maneuver that required significant preparation and planning. It was also unmistakably aggressive, the textbook formation for a fleet preparing to assault a fortified position. "They're going to attack," she realized. "Of course they are," Sarah said with something approaching sympathy. Baseline Zephyrian psychology makes surrender psychologically impossible. They would rather die with honor than live with enhancement. The enhanced humans throughout the command center began moving with their characteristic synchronized efficiency, accessing weapon systems and defensive protocols that Elena hadn't known existed. Prometheus Station began to transform before her eyes, its organic surfaces shifting to reveal armaments that defied her understanding of what was possible. "You're going to kill them all," Elena said, though she wasn't sure if she was asking a question or stating a fact. "We're going to solve a tactical problem," Adrian corrected. "The Zephyrian fleet represents a threat to enhanced human assets. The threat must be neutralized." Elena watched the displays as the enemy fleet accelerated toward Prometheus Station, their weapons charging for what would be their final battle. In a few minutes, 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships would be reduced to debris, their crews joining the countless other beings who had died refusing to accept the enhanced human's vision of galactic evolution. "There has to be another way," she said desperately. "There is," Jessica replied, her enhanced features showing something that might have been regret. They could surrender. On the tactical displays, the Zephyrian fleet opened fire. The first salvo from the Zephyrian fleet should have vaporized Prometheus Station. 200 crystalline warships unleashed their full firepower simultaneously, their energy weapons creating a storm of destruction that would have cracked planets. Instead, the station's defensive systems absorbed the attack with casual efficiency, the organic surfaces rippling like water as exotic energies dissipated harmlessly into the asteroid's modified structure. Elena Vasquez watched from the command center as tactical displays showed impossible readings. The enhanced humans had transformed their hidden base into something that defied every principle of defensive engineering she had ever studied. Where conventional shields would have failed under such massive assault, Prometheus Station's biological defenses simply adapted, evolving new configurations to handle each type of incoming fire. Fascinating, Adrian Phoenix commented, studying the readouts with scientific curiosity. The Zephyrians have improved their weapons efficiency by 12% since our last encounter. Their targeting algorithms show remarkable sophistication. They're trying to kill us, Elena said, watching as the enemy fleet repositioned for another attack run. They're trying to solve their own tactical problem, Jessica Morrison corrected, her 7th-generation enhancements allowing her to process the battle data faster than the ship computers could display it. Unfortunately, their solution parameters are fundamentally flawed. The second Zephyrian assault was more coordinated than the first, their ships moving in complex patterns designed to overwhelm point defenses while concentrating fire on what they perceived as structural weak points. It was a textbook example of fleet combat doctrine executed with the precision that had made the Zephyrian Empire the galaxy's dominant military force for millennia. It was also completely ineffective. Prometheus Station's defenses didn't operate according to conventional principles. Instead of deflecting or absorbing incoming fire, they redirected it. Elena watched in amazement as the enemy's energy weapons were captured, converted, and channeled into the station's own power systems. The more the Zephyrians attacked, the stronger their target became. "Return fire," Admiral Kythex ordered over the open communication channel, his translated voice carrying notes of desperation that Elena had never heard from a Zephyrian before. "Negative," Sarah Chun replied from the weapons control station, her silver hair reflecting the chamber's increasingly aggressive bioluminescent patterns. "We're not returning fire, Admiral. We're demonstrating superior capabilities." What happened next redefined Elena's understanding of what enhanced humans considered demonstration. Prometheus Station didn't launch missiles or fire energy weapons. Instead, the asteroid itself began to move, accelerating toward the Zephyrian fleet with impossible speed and maneuverability. The enhanced humans had converted their entire base into a single massive weapon system. The Zephyrian ships scattered in all directions, their formation disintegrating as commanders tried to avoid collision with something that shouldn't be able to move. But Prometheus Station's trajectory wasn't random. It was calculated to herd the enemy ships into a specific configuration, forcing them into positions where their own weapons couldn't be brought to bear effectively. "What are you doing?" Admiral Kythex demanded, his crystalline features showing the kind of primal fear that came from facing something beyond comprehension. "We're ending this engagement with minimal casualties," Adrian replied, his enhanced voice carrying harmonics that seemed designed to be calming. "Your crews will survive, Admiral. Your ships will be repurposed. Your empire will evolve." Elena realized what was happening as she watched the tactical displays. The enhanced humans weren't trying to destroy the Zephyrian fleet, they were capturing it. Prometheus Station's movement pattern was forcing the enemy ships into a formation that would allow for systematic boarding and conversion operations. But the Zephyrians had one final option that Elena had hoped they wouldn't consider. "All ships," Admiral Kythex announced over the fleet communication network, "initiate final protocol. For the glory of the Empire." Elena felt her blood turn to ice. Final protocol was the Zephyrian military's ultimate expression of defiance, the simultaneous detonation of every ship's reactor core. It was a tactic reserved for situations where defeat was inevitable, but surrender was psychologically impossible. The resulting explosion would vaporize everything within several million kilometers, taking both the Zephyrian fleet and Prometheus Station with it. "Enhanced humans don't panic," Jessica said calmly, though Elena noticed her movements becoming even more fluid as her enhanced reflexes prepared for emergency action. But this does represent an interesting tactical challenge. The command center filled with harmonic tones as enhanced humans throughout the facility began moving with synchronized precision. Elena watched displays showing reactor signatures from the Zephyrian ships beginning to spike toward critical levels. In less than 30 seconds, 200 ships would detonate simultaneously, creating an explosion that would be visible from neighboring star systems. Can you stop them? Elena asked desperately. We can solve the problem, Sarah replied, her enhanced cognition already processing solutions at superhuman speed. Though the solution may be somewhat dramatic. Elena was about to ask what she meant when Prometheus Station underwent another impossible transformation. The asteroid's surface rippled like liquid, revealing structures that had been hidden within its core. What emerged defied every law of physics Elena understood. A lattice of crystalline formations that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Temporal displacement field, Adrian explained as he monitored the deployment process. One of our more advanced technological developments. The explosion will occur exactly as the Zephyrians intend, but in a timeline that diverges from our own approximately 3 nanoseconds ago. Elena stared at him in shock. You can manipulate time itself? Enhanced humans can manipulate probability, Jessica corrected. Time is simply another variable in the tactical equation. The Zephyrian fleet detonated exactly as Admiral Kythex intended, their reactor cores releasing enough energy to sterilize several planets. Elena watched the tactical displays as the explosion expanded outward, a sphere of destruction that should have consumed everything in the immediate area. Instead, the explosion simply wasn't. Elena blinked, and the Zephyrian ships were intact, their crews alive and unharmed, their weapons powered down, and their communication systems flooded with enhanced human signals. The detonation had occurred, but in a timeline that no longer existed. What happened? Admiral Kythex demanded, his voice carrying notes of confusion and terror that Elena found almost pitiable. You made your choice, Adrian replied gently, and enhanced humans made a different choice. Your crews are being enhanced now, Admiral. They'll retain their memories and personalities, but their psychological frameworks will be optimized for cooperation rather than domination. Elena watched the displays as enhanced humans boarded the Zephyrian ships with impossible speed and efficiency. They moved through the corridors like living weapons, but their purpose wasn't destruction, it was transformation. Within minutes, the entire enemy fleet would be converted to serve enhanced human interests. This is wrong, she said quietly. This is evolution, Sarah corrected, her expression showing genuine sympathy for Elena's psychological distress. Species that cannot adapt to new realities become extinct. Enhanced humans are ensuring that extinction is replaced by transformation. Elena turned away from the displays, unable to watch as an entire civilization underwent forced conversion. The enhanced humans had won their war against the Zephyrian Empire, but their victory came at a cost she wasn't sure she could accept. What happens now, she asked. Now we expand, Jessica replied, manipulating holographic displays that show the enhanced humans' long-term strategic plans. The Zephyrian fleet will be integrated into our forces and used to approach other aggressive species. Most civilizations will be more willing to accept enhancement when the alternative is demonstrated by former enemies who appear happy and prosperous. Elena studied the tactical projections, watching as red indicators throughout the galaxy began shifting to blue as the enhanced humans' influence spread. They had developed a strategy for galactic conquest that was both more humane and more terrifying than anything she had ever imagined. And the species that refuse? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Will be isolated until they choose differently, Adrian said matter-of-factly. Enhanced humans can't afford to be patient. We have centuries to wait for stubborn species to either evolve or eliminate themselves through their own aggressive tendencies. Elena walked back to the observation window, staring out at the converted Zephyrian fleet as enhanced humans moved between the ships, coordinating integration operations with machine-like efficiency. The sight should have filled her with satisfaction. Humanity had finally struck back against the empire that destroyed Earth. But instead, she felt a growing unease about what her species had become in pursuit of survival. You're troubled, Adrian observed, joining her at the window with his characteristic silent movement. "You become something that baseline humans can't understand," Elena replied. "Your methods, your goals, your entire perspective on morality and choice, it's all been optimized for efficiency rather than ethics." Enhanced humans consider efficiency and ethics to be synonymous in most contexts, Adrian said thoughtfully. Inefficient solutions typically result in greater suffering over time. Our methods minimize total casualties while maximizing long-term stability. Elena turned to face him, studying the being who had once been her friend and colleague. Adrian Phoenix still looked human, but his enhanced features held depths of intelligence and calculation that seemed almost alien. "And what about freedom?" she asked. "What about the right of species to make their own choices, even if those choices are wrong?" "Freedom without survival is meaningless," Adrian replied. "Enhanced humans are ensuring that all species have the opportunity to make choices within sustainable parameters." The philosophical debate was interrupted by new alerts from the command center. Elena followed Adrian back to the tactical displays, where she saw developments that made her breath catch in her throat. The news of the Zephyrian Empire's fall was spreading throughout the galaxy faster than enhanced humans had anticipated. Some species were responding with relief, grateful to be free from Zephyrian domination. But others were reacting with fear and suspicion, recognizing that humanity's return represented a fundamental shift in the galactic balance of power. "Military alliance forming in the Centaurus sector," Jessica reported, her enhanced cognition processing intelligence reports from across multiple star systems. 17 species have pledged mutual defense against the human threat. They're mobilizing fleets from 43 different systems. And in the Perseus Arm, Sarah added, 3 major civilizations have initiated crash research programs aimed at developing enhanced human countermeasures. They're attempting to reverse engineer our enhancement technologies. Elena studied the readouts, watching as the galaxy polarized into factions that either supported or opposed the enhanced humans' vision of galactic order. The war against the Zephyrian Empire had been just the beginning. Now came the much more complex challenge of reshaping an entire galaxy's worth of civilizations. "Are you prepared for a galactic war?" she asked. "Enhanced humans don't wage wars," Adrian corrected with absolute confidence. "We solve problems. The current situation represents a complex problem that will require systematic solution across multiple fronts. Which means, Jessica said with a smile that was both beautiful and predatory, that every species in the galaxy is about to learn why humanity never stays extinct. Elena looked around the command center, watching enhanced humans coordinate operations that spanned thousands of star systems. Their efficiency was terrifying, their capabilities almost godlike, and their determination absolutely unshakable. They had transformed themselves into something beyond human recognition in order to ensure humanity's survival. And they had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest imagination. The galaxy would never be the same. Species that had ruled for millennia would face forced evolution or voluntary exile. Civilizations that had prospered through conquest would learn cooperation or face extinction. And at the center of it all, enhanced humans would continue their patient work of reshaping reality according to their vision of what the universe should become. Elena Vasquez, the last admiral of the Earth Defense Force, stood among these transformed beings and wondered if their victory was worth the price they had paid for it. Humanity had struck back against its enemies with devastating effectiveness. But in saving their species, had they lost their souls? As alarms sounded throughout Prometheus Station, announcing the approach of new fleets from across the galaxy, Elena realized that question would be answered in the battles to come. The enhanced humans had won their first war. Now they would find out if they could win them all.